It brings me great pleasure to introduce our first speaker. So Blair Douglas from BHP is going to kick us off and give you a warm welcome. Thank you. It's coming up
BHP is a global mineral company and one of the world's largest diversified miners in both minerals and petroleum. And it's vital water is managed efficiently and effectively in operations. Today I'll be talking through some of those points. We also recognise it's essential to life, and it plays a spiritual and cultural and ecological role in the landscape. And today I'm focusing on the production-related topics of water management for our mineral sector and how it plays out where we have challenges around having too much water within remote areas of the world. Next slide, please. I'll be discussing the two challenges, one relating to what we call mine dewatering, and secondly, one relating to the excess water management created from the mine dewatering. And although this issue is particularly important to BHP, it's also a common challenge across the mining industry itself, which is accessing the mineral resource which is below the water table. It's a challenge for two of our biggest commodities, copper, which is in South America, and the iron ore, which is in the Pilbara region. So quickly, what is mine dewatering? Well, it's the process we use to access the mineral resource which is below the water table. And for example, in the Pilbara, we have 60% of our mineral resource, which is an enormous amount, below the water table. And we need to carry out extensive groundwater pumping to lower the water so we can access the mineral safely. And it allows us to have safe production movement, plus also allows our mine plans and fleet to operate effectively. So it's not quite as simple as installing a couple of wells and pumping. Where we see difficulty is that we need to work large pumping infrastructure into a fully operational mine, and not a small mine, a big mine, and a mine which is modifying and changing each year and adapting to a different configuration of layout. And dewatering needs to be able to fit into those operations. And we do it through multiple wells drilled to around a couple of 100 metres, and they pump up to about 50 litres a second. And there's enormous amounts of infrastructure which connects them up, and we pump that water out of the mining operation itself. And I'll talk about what we do with it a bit later. Next slide, please. Let's go back one slide. I think you've gone too far. Thanks. So let's look at the challenges. Dewatering requires a long lead time to plan, install, and operate. And during this time, mining can adjust and shift. And so it becomes one of the longest lead items of a mining operation that we have. It becomes a constraint, but it's also an enabler to get the ore out of the ground. And it requires significant infrastructure and technical input in determining where we put the wells and how we pump them and what size pump we use and what configuration of pumps. The large volumes of water requires a fairly large pumping configuration of infrastructure. And given that we're blasting around this infrastructure and digging around it, we have to keep moving it. And we've got up to 30 wells within a mining operation, sometimes up to 10 or 15 in one pit. There's a lot of infrastructure to take out and put back in. And we're talking around somewhere between 10 and 50 megalitres a day from each of our pits. And we have got more than a dozen operating at one time. There could be up to 2 dozen operating. And collectively in the Pilbara, there's over 50. There may be even 100 open pits operating below the water table and needing to pump those volumes. So we're trying to seek solutions which don't interrupt with the mineral process and the mining process, which is our drill, blast, dig, haul model. And we need to fit within that. So solutions which modify the mining plan and mining operation, fleet and value chain are not really what we're seeking. And we recognise there's no silver bullets with improving our dewatering process, but we're looking for ways that we can incrementally shift and improve what we're doing. We're looking for safe, efficient, relatively low cost options that can be adapted within the mining area. For example, there's a couple of trials which are being used internally with us and also externally in other companies where we're looking at the use of directional wells and petroleum industry drilling. Others are looking at installing in situ barrier cut-off walls. But all these things need to consider the complexity of the mining operation and the safety in introducing new techniques. I'll just move on to the last slide, which is the independency with dewatering, and it's quite a different problem we're facing, and I see it as an opportunity for all of us collectively, and that the other side of the equation is that when we pump this water out, we need to do something with it. And yes, this challenge is out there across multiple industries. I know Queensland has the same. The uniqueness here is we're pumping very fresh water. We're pumping over 400 megalitres a day. That volume is increasing. I did show before that mine dewatering does change and therefore the water balance shifts and that number does fluctuate daily. But at the moment, what we're looking for is sustainable solutions to manage that volume of water. We don't have 400 at the moment. Of course, that's a collective number. We have less than that, but we still have a large volume of water that needs to be managed. And at the moment, we're looking at managed aquifer recharge. We're looking at strategic creek discharge and infiltration. We're looking at use on site, of course. But we've got stewardship requirements. We've got stewardship goals, and we're trying to meet sustainability objectives of minimising impacts. And that would also require us to consider beneficial use. And although the Pilbara is in a remote part of the world, it does benefit from core ingredients of sunshine, lots of land, and lots of water, fresh water. And so it's a bit of an opportunity for everybody to think through solutions which could be industry focused. We don't want to invest in large-scale agricultural precincts, but we have got some of the raw ingredients which are necessary. But in that process, it's complex, and we know that it needs solutions which link industry, finances, government, for all the different types of complexities around building beneficial use schemes. And what we don't want is solutions which constrain our production and constrain our mining. But we're open to talking through solutions where we can mutually find solutions to meet our objectives and meet someone else's objectives. And considering that the volumes of water are large, it's probably important that we start to think about these solutions as regional scale and multi-industry solutions. And we're happy to participate and start those discussions at some point. I'll leave it there, and thank you very much for listening to the pitch today.
Thank you so much, Blair. It was another very interesting presentation. The presentations today have been quite incredible.